Hi, and welcome to the Agricultural Pesticide Mapping Tool Overview. My name is Daniel Madrigal, and I'm a health educator with the California Environmental Health Tracking Program. Today I'll be your guide. Here's a quick peek of the tool. It's an interactive map of pesticide use data in California. It allows you to see how much pesticides were used in a specific area, compare that use with other areas in the state, and see how that use has changed over time. This tool is a project of the California Environmental Health Tracking Program, a collaboration between the Public Health Institute and the California Department of Public Health. The tracking program works to make environmental health data and information publicly available through the development of a web-based data query system, state-of-the-art data displays, and innovative web tools and services. The tracking program aims to make these data and information accessible and useful to a variety of stakeholders, including communities, governments, academia, and private partners. Funding for our program, including the pesticide mapping tool, primarily comes from the CDC. In this overview, I will begin by introducing the data used for the tool, data that comes from the California Department of Pesticide Regulations Pesticide Use Reporting System. Next, I will give a tour of the tool's features. I will then present 3 hypothetical examples of when the tool might be used. Then I will finish by discussing other resources available from our program to help explore the connection between pesticides and health. Okay, let's get started. California leads the nation in agriculture, accounting for 13% of crop production in the United States. In 2014, this was worth $54 billion. Over a third of the country's vegetables and 2/3 of the country's fruits and nuts are grown in the state. To protect these crops from pests, chemical pesticides are frequently used. California is also the leader in pesticide use, accounting for over 20% of pesticides used in the country. In 2014, 173 million pounds of pesticides were used in agriculture. Despite regulations to prevent exposure and efforts by applicators, these pesticides do not always stay within the boundaries of the fields in which they are applied. We are concerned about acute exposures, chronic exposures, and sensitive populations. Acute exposure occurs over a short period of time, often at higher levels, and may result in pesticide poisoning. In 2013, the last year data were available, 431 reports of poisonings were recorded in CDPR's Pesticide Illness Query database. Chronic exposure occurs over a longer period of time, often at lower levels that may not result in immediate symptoms. We are learning more and more about the links between exposure to pesticides and a range of poor health outcomes, including birth defects, lower IQ scores, behavior problems, poor lung function, and cancer. Another reason public health might pay attention to pesticides is that sensitive populations, such as children, are more vulnerable to exposure. They're more likely to exhibit behaviors that would increase their risk, like playing on the floor and putting their hands in their mouths. They eat and drink more than adults relative to their body weight, and of course, their brains and bodies are still developing. In California, the pesticide use data gives us a unique opportunity to examine the link between pesticides and health. Pesticide use reporting in California dates back to at least the 1950s. However, in the beginning, not all agricultural pesticide use was reported. In 1990, the California legislature passed a bill to require reporting of all agricultural pesticides. In this system, pesticide applicators are required to send pesticide use reports monthly to their respective county agricultural commissioners, who in turn send their monthly reports to the California Department of Pesticide Regulation, or CDPR. It takes a tremendous amount of work to collect, clean, and make this data public. As such, this system has no equal. California's pesticide use data is the most comprehensive in the world and provides valuable information to our state. For each pesticide application, a list of details about the application must be reported. This includes the pesticide or pesticides used, the method of application, the location of the field, the crops grown in the field where the pesticides were applied, the time and date of application, the name of the applicator, and more. CDPR makes this data available on their pesticide information portal, and they release these reports each year. A few months back, in April, they made the 2014 data publicly available. The data formats require advanced data skills to access, understand, and analyze. To make the data a bit easier to explore, we developed the Agricultural Pesticide Mapping tool. The tool was first launched by the Tracking Program in 2008. It was conceived and developed by Craig Wolf, our former Geospatial Sciences Director who tragically passed in 2013. This is the first update of the tool since then, and we plan to continue its development in the coming years. So please let us know if there are any ideas you have about how to make the tool more useful. Okay, now let's check out the tool's features. At the bottom, there's a currently viewing display that shows the data presented. In this case, country is the geographic unit, all pesticides is the pesticide type, all crops is the crop type, some pounds is the pesticide measure, and 2014 is the year. Next, in the upper right-hand corner, we have the search field, where you can zoom in into the location of interest by typing in an address, a city, a zip code, or a county. You can also use the zoom buttons in the upper left as you would a Google map to zoom into the area you're interested in. The map's pesticide layer is divided into 3 colors for lower, medium, and higher pesticide use. These are calculated by the percentiles of pesticide use based on the current selection. Here I've lined up the pesticide use by county in the column chart. This is the same data from the map on the previous slide. Now let's see the colors used in the map. The lowest 50% would be light pink. Here you can barely see them. The next 25% would be medium red, and the top 25% would be darkest red. This color scheme was chosen to help the user more quickly identify various levels of pesticide use. Now back to the map. In the upper left we have the opacity slider. It allows the user to change the transparency of the pesticide layer. This could be useful if you wanted to look for geographical features on the map. Similarly, you can click Satellite for the satellite image of the area instead of the background map. This can be useful if you wanted to see where fields lie in an area of interest. Finally, in the corner, we have the pesticide selection menu. This pop-up allows you to change the data displayed. You can customize the map with these selections. First, there's the year of application. Next, there's the measure of pesticide use. Either the total sum of pesticides applied, the total number of acres that pesticides were applied to, or the pounds per acre, which serves as a measure of concentration. You can also change the geographic unit, pesticide type, and crop type. I'll talk a little bit more about these right now. Geographic unit options are county, township, and section. Here are 4 maps showing the same exact location in Sacramento County with the 3 geographic units. The first square displays the area without the map layer. Next is the county view. The color inside indicates pesticide use for the whole county. The next 2 geographies, townships and sections, are designations from the Public Land Survey System. Townships are approximately 6 mile by 6 mile squares. Each township contains 36 sections, which are approximately 1 mile by 1 mile square. Sections are the most refined geographic data that we have available on the pesticide mapping tool. Next, we have the pesticide selection. The default is all pesticides. In this drop-down menu, the first 7 options are categories, or pesticide groups. They are carcinogens, cholinesterase inhibitors, endocrine disruptors, fumigants, neonicotinoids, reproductive and developmental toxicants, and toxic air contaminants. The list of chemicals for each of the groups can be found on our website on the About the Data page. The next 10 pesticides listed in this drop-down menu is an automatically generated list of highest use given the other criteria selected, the year, the crop, and the pesticide metric. Other pesticides can be searched with the Search for Individual Chemicals link in blue to the right. Similarly, you can narrow the selection to a particular crop. The default here is all crops, and the drop-down menu allows you to select from the automatically generated list of highest use given the other criteria selected, the year, the pesticide type, and the pesticide metric. Other crops can be searched by clicking the Search for Crop or Site link, again in blue. Going back to the map, if we click on an area, a pop-up displays the summed pounds, acres, and pounds per acre, also known as the application rate. In this example of a click on Monterey County, we see that 8.3 million pounds of pesticides were used in this county in 2014. If we click on the link that says Time Series Tables and Charts, we can dig a little deeper. The tool displays a time series chart and a table of pesticide use over the years. Within this area of the tool, the user can toggle between geographic units with the buttons on top and the pesticide metrics with the buttons here between the time trend and the table. Okay, now on to the examples. I will give 3 hypothetical examples of when someone might want to explore the PUR data with our mapping tool. And after going through all 3, I will begin a live demo. The first example relates to US EPA's decision last year to essentially ban the use of chlorpyrifos in agriculture. This decision was based on their analysis that found that, while risk of chlorpyrifos exposure in food is very low, in combination with risk of exposure from chlorpyrifos contaminated drinking water in certain watersheds, the safety levels set for chlorpyrifos may be exceeded. If you were a researcher who wanted to test water sources for chlorpyrifos in California, you may want to identify areas of higher use for initial analyses. In the second example, we consider the sudden die-off of bees known as colony collapse disorder, a threat to the food production ecosystem. There has been growing concern about the link between a family of pesticides known as neonicotinoids and colony collapse disorder. If you are a beekeeper, you might want to know where neonicotinoids are used near your hives. In our third example, we tackle pesticides used near schools. In 2014, we released a report on agricultural pesticides used near public schools in California. I'll talk more about this report in a bit. However, since the release of the report, there have been several news articles about pesticides applied in close proximity to where children learn. If you are a teacher at a school located near fields in Ventura County, you might want to know about pesticide use near your school, particularly fumigants, and you might want to know whether pesticide use is going up or down. Let's start by going to the homepage of the tracking program, www.CEHTP.org. Under the View Data drop-down menu, we'll select Pesticides. This is how you get to the pesticide mapping tool. Our first example is with the researcher who wants to study chlorpyrifos in water. They want to know where in the state chlorpyrifos is used most. First, I will go to the pesticide selection menu in the upper left. Here I will select the search for individual chemicals and start to type in chlorpyrifos. You can see that it will autocomplete. We'll click OK. Now you can see that in the currently viewing window, we'll see that the map displays chlorpyrifos pesticide use data. In the map, we can see that chlorpyrifos use is highest in the Central Valley, and then here in Imperial and Ventura counties. The current display shows summed pounds of pesticide use. If our researcher was interested in the application rate to see concentration of use, they could go back to the pesticide selection menu and select pounds per acre under select summary unit. We can see that areas of higher pesticides changed quite a bit. The researcher now has more information to make a decision on where to set up their study. We're going to refresh our browser to start with a fresh screen for the second example with the beekeeper. This particular beekeeper lives in Kern County and rents out their beehives for almond orchards. They want to check on neonicotinoid use near 2 potential locations that want to rent out their hives. First, we will start at the pesticide selection menu and select neonicotinoids as the pesticide type. Next, we will search for Kern County to zoom into the area where the beekeeper lives. Here in this screen, we can see neonicotinoid use in Kern. Next, we will search for the towns where this beekeeper might be renting out their hives. The first town is in Edison, California. In this section, we see that neonicotinoid use is higher compared with all other sections in California. The second town where the beekeeper might rent out their hives is in another nearby town of Connor, California. We'll type it into the screen right here. And we see that we have to click twice to zoom into that particular location. Here we see that only one section nearby has lower neonicotinoid use. Our beekeeper was able to learn more about pesticide use, and particularly neonicotinoid use, near their bees with the mapping tool. I'm going to refresh the screen to start fresh for our third example, our teacher in Ventura County who wants to know about pesticide use and particularly fumigant use near their school. In this case, we will zoom into the school first. I'll type the address of the school into the search field, and here we see that the school is in a section of higher pesticide use. If we click on the section, we see that 42,000 pounds of pesticides were used in this section in 2014. If we click the satellite view, we can see that the school is surrounded by fields. Now this teacher read the articles about fumigants used near schools and wants to learn more. They click on fumigants, and we see that there was no fumigants used in the section their school is in 2014. However, in the adjacent field, there were fumigants used. If we click on this field, we see that there were 73,000 pounds of fumigants used here in 2014. Now, if the teacher wanted to know more about whether fumigant use is going up or down, they can click on this section and click on the time trends chart. They would see that fumigant use in this section was very low until 2014. To see fumigant use trends in the township, they could click on the township button in the time trends chart display. They would see that there's been a gradual increase over the past 20 years of fumigant use, but a decline in the past few years. Similarly, they could see fumigant trends in the county by clicking county. They would see similar trends to the trends that they saw for the township. With the mapping tool, the teacher was able to learn about fumigant use near their school and to see trends of use over time. After exploring the tool, some users might want to download an image of the map or time series chart. Although this version of the tool does not have that capability, this can be done with a screen capture browser extension. A quick Google search will provide instructions on how to do this. If you do use the tool, please make sure to cite the California Environmental Health Tracking Program. We have our preferred citation format just above the tool on our website. And now there are many possible uses to the tool, and here are a few more. The tool could be used to help gather background information for siting decisions. For example, if you had the responsibility of deciding the location of a new childcare center, they might want to find a site that's not within a 1 mile by 1 mile section that has higher fumigant use. The tool could also be used by a health educator planning an educational campaign to prevent pesticide exposure among non-agricultural outdoor workers. Last year, there was an incident with workers at a solar farm in Kern County who were exposed to the pesticide fenpropathrine. An outreach campaign could identify areas of higher pesticide use near outdoor work sites to help select areas to focus outreach efforts. And another possible use is the Community Health Needs Assessment. The tool could be used to help describe the environmental issues of an area. Okay, so while this tool is obviously pretty great, there are some limitations to keep in mind. First off, proximity does not equal exposure. Exposure is dependent on a variety of factors, including the method of application, persistence of the pesticides in the environment, wind patterns, and much more. Second, this tool does not include pesticide applications for non-agricultural uses, such as structural pesticide control in buildings or home and garden pesticide use. Third, in our tool you can only view data for a single year at a time. You can't look at pesticide use by month or by week. For this level of temporal resolution, we suggest you go to the PUR data directly at CDPR's Pesticide Information Portal. Fourth, our tool shows the most recent data available from CDPR, which currently is data from 2014. So the tool doesn't have information on the most recent applications. The fifth limitation to keep in mind is that the tool displays data down to the 1 mile by 1 mile section, and pesticides are not applied uniformly through those geographies. Even with these limitations, the tool can be a valuable resource to better understand pesticide use of a given area. We've made it to our third and final section, additional resources from our program that aim to help people better understand the connection between pesticides and health in California. On our website, we have a pesticide page with basic information about pesticides and health, including sections on what are pesticides and who's at risk. We also link to other organizations with pesticide resources, like the County Agricultural Commissioners of California, CDPR, and the EPA. County Agricultural Commissioners enforce regulations locally and are often the point of contact when reporting potential exposures or for specific questions around local regulations, permits, and applications. CDPR's website, in addition to the PUR data, has information on California-specific regulations and a lot of educational materials on how to reduce pesticide exposure and how to report concerns. The EPA's pesticide page also has a lot of information on how to prevent exposure. Our program also offers pesticide linkage services which calculate or characterize the agricultural pesticides applied within an area. The area can be a specific radius around a point, such an address, or it can be any shaped polygon. Unlike the pesticide mapping tool, this service takes into account the fields where pesticides are applied rather than assuming the whole section has had pesticides applied evenly. This service also allows us to specify crops, pesticides, and time periods. It can be used to better understand pesticide use near a community for research, planning, and more. These pesticide linkage methods have been used to study the relationship between pesticides and a range of health outcomes including birth defects, cancer, birth outcomes, and autism. Contact us if you'd like more information about these services. An example of our pesticide linkage service in action is our Agricultural Pesticides in Your Public Schools report. In this report, we estimated pesticide use within a quarter mile of schools in 15 agricultural counties in California. The report looked at over 2,500 schools attended by over 1.4 million students. We wrote this report because stakeholders were concerned about pesticide use near schools, and it had been challenging to quantify that data. There was a realization that this could be of use to local health departments, to agricultural commissioners, and to schools. Since we had done work in this area with the mapping tool and with the linkages, and since the school boundaries were available, it presented the opportunity to bring it all together and provide a better estimate of pesticide use near schools. Nearby pesticide use varied among the counties. Of the schools included in the report, 64% didn't have any pesticides of public health concern applied nearby, while a small percentage of schools, 5% or 45 schools, had amounts of pesticides applied within a quarter mile ranging from 2,600 pounds to almost 29,000 pounds. The report also looked at the demographic breakdown of children going to schools near high pesticide use and found that Latino children were more likely to attend these schools. Publishing this report, along with the efforts of others, brought attention to the issue of pesticides used near schools in California. A year after the report, Director of CDPR Brian Leahy wrote an op-ed announcing the department's commitment to protect children and to explore the possibility of requiring notifications before pesticides are applied and creating a buffer to restrict pesticide use near schools. CDPR held a series of town halls in the summer of 2015 and accepted comments on these potential rules. The final rules are expected to come out sometime this year. Over in Monterey County, they're getting a head start. They have begun a pilot project at 3 schools in the Paro Valley area to test these notifications. This brings us to the end of the Agricultural Pesticide Mapping Tool overview. Thanks for your attention. If you have any questions, please get in touch. I can be reached at daniel.madrigal@cdph.ca.gov.